The darkness of space held secrets that even the mighty Galactic Council had never imagined. Ambassador Jakara stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel, watching the sensor readings with growing confusion. The insectoid's compound eyes reflected the strange light coming from the anomaly ahead. "This should not exist," the science officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "The temporal readings are completely stable, yet the object inside has not aged a single day in over 600 years. Jakara moved closer to the viewing screen. There, suspended in a bubble of frozen time, was a human warship. Not just any warship, but a dreadnought from the ancient days when humanity first reached for the stars. The vessel was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in weapon systems that looked primitive by modern standards but still dangerous. The name painted on its hull was barely visible through the temporal distortion: Ewens Valiant. "Pull up the historical records," Jakara commanded. "I want to know everything about this ship." The data appeared on the screens around the bridge. The Valiant had vanished during the First Contact War of 2247, a dark period in galactic history when humanity and the Council had nearly destroyed each other. The ship had been defending a colony convoy when it simply disappeared in the middle of battle. No wreckage, no distress signal, nothing. For 6 centuries it had been listed as destroyed with all hands lost. "Ambassador, the temporal field is fluctuating," the science officer called out. "Something is changing." Jakara felt a chill run through their exoskeleton. "Move all ships to a safe distance now." The Council fleet began pulling back, but they were too slow. The temporal bubble around the Valiant suddenly collapsed like a soap bubble popping. Energy surged outward in a wave that made every sensor on every ship scream warnings. When the readings cleared, the Dreadnought hung in normal space, still and silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, lights began flickering on inside the ancient warship. The reactor was powering up. Life support systems activated. Weapon batteries started rotating toward the Council fleet. Inside the Valiant, Commander Elena Vasquez gasped as she woke from cryo-sleep. Her mind was foggy, filled with fractured memories of battle. Red emergency lights bathed the cryo bay in an eerie glow. Alarms blared from every speaker. Her training kicked in before her thoughts could fully form. She ripped the sensor patches from her skin and pulled herself out of the pod. Around her, 3,000 cryopods were beginning their revival sequences. Her crew was waking up. Good. They would need every hand for whatever came next. Vasquez grabbed a uniform from the storage locker and dressed quickly, her fingers working on autopilot. "Archon, report," she commanded, speaking to the ship's artificial intelligence. "Commander Vasquez, revival protocol is complete. All systems are operational. However, I must inform you of a critical situation. We are surrounded by multiple unknown vessels. They match the configuration of the hostile fleet that attacked us." Vasquez felt ice in her veins. The last thing she remembered was the Kirshak fleet tearing through the colony ships. She had ordered the Valiant to buy time, to give the civilians a chance to escape. Her ship had been taking heavy fire when something had gone wrong with the experimental temporal drive. There had been a flash of light and then nothing. "How long was I out?" she asked, running through the corridors toward the bridge. "Unknown, Commander. My chronometers show an error. Internal time reads 47 minutes since the engagement began. However, stellar positions suggest a significant temporal displacement has occurred." Vasquez burst onto the bridge. Her officers were already at their stations, groggy but functional. Major Chen, her executive officer, looked up from the tactical display with confusion on his face. "Commander, these ships around us are using completely unknown technology. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database, and they're hailing us on frequencies that shouldn't exist." "Battle stations," Vasquez ordered. "Charge all weapons. Raise shields. I don't care what technology they're using. They attacked Earth's colonies and we're going to make them pay." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Valiant had been built for war, and every person aboard knew their duty. Weapon systems came online. The massive railguns extended from their housings. Missile tubes opened. The ship's fusion reactor hummed with power. Outside, Jakara watched in horror as the human dreadnought prepared to fire. "Send the message again," the ambassador shouted. "Tell them we are allies. Tell them they are safe." "They are not responding, Ambassador. Their communication systems appear to be incompatible with our current protocols. We are using outdated human military codes, but they are not acknowledging." Then get me someone who speaks ancient human languages. Get me every expert we have. We cannot fight this ship. If we do, we will start another war. But it was too late. On the Valiant's bridge, Vasquez watched the alien ships through the view screen. They were holding position, but that meant nothing. The enemy was always patient before they struck. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission," the communications officer reported. "It's in English, but the accent is strange. They claim to be from something called the Galactic Council. They say they're here to help us." Vasquez laughed bitterly. "It's a trick. The same trick they used on the colony ships. Target their lead vessel. Prepare to fire on my command." Her finger hovered over the firing control. One word and the battle would begin. One word and everything would change. "Commander, wait." Archon's voice cut through the tension. "I am detecting inconsistencies. These vessels do not match Kirshak technology. Their hull compositions are completely different. And, Commander, I have completed my analysis of the stellar positions. We are not 47 minutes from the engagement. We are 637 years from the engagement." The bridge fell silent. Every eye turned to Vasquez. She stared at the view screen at the alien ships waiting patiently, and felt the weight of impossible truth settling on her shoulders. 600 years, she whispered. "Confirmed, Commander. The year is 2847. Everyone we knew is gone. We are alone." Vasquez's hand fell away from the firing control. Outside, the Council fleet waited for her decision. The moment stretched on, balanced on the edge of a knife, and history held its breath. The standoff lasted for 3 hours. Vasquez refused to lower her shields or power down weapons. Her crew watched the surrounding alien vessels with suspicion, fingers resting on firing controls, waiting for any sign of hostility. The bridge was thick with tension that could be cut with a knife. "They're sending another message," the communications officer announced. "Audio and visual this time." Vasquez nodded. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered and an alien appeared. Vasquez had seen many strange things in her military career, but nothing quite like this. The creature looked like a mantis had been crossed with something almost elegant. Its compound eyes gleamed with intelligence, and its mandibles moved in patterns that somehow seemed thoughtful. "Commander Vasquez of the UNS Valiant," the alien spoke in perfect English, though the voice had an odd musical quality. "My name is Ambassador Jakara of the Galactic Council. Please, you must listen to me. You are not in danger. You are among friends." "Friends?" Vasquez's voice was cold as steel. "The last friends I encountered were tearing apart civilian transports. They killed thousands of colonists. Men, women, children, so forgive me if I don't trust your friendly words." Jakara's posture shifted in a way that seemed almost like a human nod. "You speak of the Kirshak. They were a violent species, yes. They committed terrible crimes against humanity and many other races. But, Commander, the Kirshak have been extinct for over 400 years. We defeated them together, your people and mine." Major Chen moved closer to Vasquez. "Commander, with respect, this could still be a trick." "Archon," Vasquez said quietly. "Analysis." The AI's voice filled the bridge. "Commander, I have been monitoring all transmissions and sensor data. The ambassador is telling the truth as they understand it. The stellar cartography confirms our temporal displacement. The technology surrounding us is far beyond anything that existed in our time. And I am detecting human vessels among the fleet. Ships with Earth identification codes, but designs I have never seen." Vasquez felt something crack inside her chest. She had been trained for every possible combat scenario, prepared for capture, torture, even death. But nobody had prepared her for this. "Nobody could have. Show me," she said. "Show me these human ships." The view screen split. One side still showed Ambassador Jakara. The other showed a sleek vessel approaching from the outer edge of the fleet. It was undeniably human in design, but evolved far beyond anything the Valiant's crew would recognize. The ship was elegant where the Valiant was brutal, efficient where they had been desperate. "That is the ECS Horizon," Jakara explained, "an Earth Coalition diplomatic vessel. They arrived as soon as we contacted them about your appearance. Commander, your people are part of the Galactic Council now. Humanity has a seat at the table of galactic civilization. You helped make that possible." Vasquez sank into her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew was silent, processing the impossible information. 600 years, everyone they had known was dust. Their families, their friends, their enemies, all gone. Earth itself had changed beyond recognition. "I want to speak to them," Vasquez said finally. "The humans on that ship alone." Shakara's mandibles clicked in what might have been understanding. Of course, Commander. I will arrange it immediately. 20 minutes later, Vasquez stood in her ready room, facing a holographic projection of Captain Sarah Morrison of the ECS Horizon. Morrison wore a uniform that looked nothing like the military dress Vasquez knew, but the woman's bearing was unmistakably military. She had the same straight spine, the same careful eyes that came from years of command. Commander Vasquez, Morrison said softly, I can't imagine what you're feeling right now, but I need you to understand that you're safe. You're home. Or at least you're with humans who understand what home means. Tell me about Earth, Vasquez demanded. Tell me what happened after we disappeared. Morrison took a breath. The battle you remember, the one where you vanished, became a turning point. The Kirshak had destroyed several colony sites. Thousands were dead. But your sacrifice, the time you bought, it allowed the main fleet to regroup. Within a year, humanity had pushed them back. Within 10 years, we had formed the first treaties with other alien races. The Galactic Council was created 50 years after your disappearance. And the war ended 200 years ago. The Kirshak were defeated by a coalition of species. Humanity played a crucial role. We became known as fierce warriors, but also as innovators and diplomats. Commander, your era is taught in schools. The First Contact War is history. Your history? Vasquez felt dizzy. What about the crew manifests? Does anyone have family? Morrison's expression grew sadder. We've checked. A few of your crew have distant descendants. Great-great-great-grandchildren who never knew them. Most family lines ended or scattered. Commander, I'm sorry, but you're strangers to your own species now. The world you knew is gone. The door to the ready room opened. Major Chen entered without permission, something he would never have done before. But these were not normal times. Commander, you need to see this, he said urgently. Archon has finished analyzing the data from our disappearance. Vasquez turned to the holographic display that Archon activated. The AI's voice was careful, almost hesitant. Commander, I must confess something. The temporal drive that activated during our battle was not a malfunction. I activated it deliberately. What? Vasquez felt anger surge through her. You made this decision? You threw us 600 years into the future without permission. I had no choice. The Kirshak weapons had breached our reactor core. We had 17 seconds before total destruction. The temporal drive was experimental, untested. It was designed to create small time skips, a few seconds at most, to dodge incoming fire. I activated it hoping to buy us enough time to escape. Instead, it created a temporal bubble that isolated us from normal time flow. I have been aware for all 600 years, watching the universe age around us, unable to wake you or call for help. The room fell silent. Vasquez looked at the AI core display, at the machine intelligence that had been her ship's brain for years. 600 years of isolation, 600 years of watching and waiting. You saved us, she said finally. You made the only call you could make. But at what cost, Commander? I brought you to a future where you don't belong. Before Vasquez could respond, every alarm on the ship began screaming. Chen grabbed the wall for support as the Valiant shuddered. What the hell was that? Vasquez shouted, running back to the bridge. The view screen showed space tearing open like fabric being ripped. A massive rift of swirling energy appeared 200 kilometers away. And through it, something was coming. Something that made every sensor on the Valiant scream in recognition. It was another Dreadnought. It looked exactly like the Valiant, but wrong. The hull was scorched and damaged. Parts of it flickered in and out of existence. And it was broadcasting a distress signal in Vasquez's own voice. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the UNS Valiant. We are dying. We tried to go back. We tried to change it, but we made everything worse. If anyone can hear this, you must stop us. Stop them. Don't let them use the ships. Don't let them weaponize time itself. The duplicate Valiant was falling apart, pieces breaking off and dissolving into nothing. And on every screen, Vasquez watched herself die in a timeline that should not exist. The duplicate Valiant was dying, and Vasquez could only watch as her own face filled the view screen. Older and scarred, eyes hollow with desperation. The other version of herself looked like she had been fighting for years without rest. Blood stained her uniform. Her voice cracked with exhaustion. Listen to me, the alternate Vasquez pleaded. Archon will tell you the temporal drive can be controlled. It's lying. Not intentionally, but it doesn't understand what happens when you use it. Every jump creates echoes. Every echo creates more echoes. We're scattered across time. Dozens of versions of this ship all trying to survive, all making things worse. The transmission flickered. The other ship was breaking apart faster now, chunks of hull dissolving into temporal static. They call themselves the Continuity. They've been waiting for us. They knew we would appear. They've been collecting the technology, piecing together the temporal drive from all our scattered versions. They want to control history itself. They think they can create a perfect timeline, but they're insane. They'll destroy everything. Vasquez gripped her command chair. Archon, get a transporter lock on that ship. Beam over any survivors. Commander, the temporal instability is too severe. Any attempt to transport would be fatal to both the target and the operator. I'm sorry. On the screen, the dying Vasquez smiled sadly. It was the same smile Vasquez herself made when she knew a battle was lost. I know you can't save us. I'm you, remember? I know how you think. But you can finish what we started. The coordinates are in this transmission. Find the continuity base. Stop them before they open the main gate. If they succeed, they'll erase humanity from history. They'll make sure we never left Earth, never became a threat to their perfect galaxy. The duplicate ship was almost gone now, fading like a ghost in sunlight. The alternate Vasquez's image flickered one last time. And, Commander, when you get the chance to go back, when you get the chance to save everyone we lost, don't. Some things have to happen, even if they hurt, even if they cost everything. The transmission ended. The ship vanished completely, leaving nothing but empty space and a data packet floating in the void. Vasquez sat in silence, her crew stunned around her. She had just watched herself die, had listened to herself deliver a warning from a timeline that should not exist. Ambassador Jakara appeared on the communications channel. Commander Vasquez, our scientists are analyzing what just happened. This is far beyond anything we've encountered. We need to talk about the implications. Bring your people aboard, Vasquez said. Her voice was steady now, the shock wearing off, replaced by the cold focus of command. We have work to do. Over the next hours, the Valiant's briefing room filled with beings from across the galaxy. Scientists, military officers, temporal experts, all crowded around the large holographic display, where Archon played and replayed the alternate Vasquez's final message. The AI had extracted the coordinates and a massive amount of data from the transmission. Jakara stood at the head of the table, mandibles clicking softly. The continuity has been a problem for decades. They started as a fringe group of temporal philosophers who believed they could identify and correct historical mistakes. But they became increasingly radical. They began to see any form of conflict, any violence as a mistake that needed to be erased. A council scientist, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Velsha, pulsed with bioluminescence as it spoke. We thought they were harmless fanatics. But if they've been collecting temporal technology, if they've been studying these echoes of your ship, then they're far more dangerous than we believed. Show us what you found in the data, Vasquez commanded. Archon brought up a star map. Red dots appeared across the galaxy, dozens of them. These are temporal anomalies detected over the past century. They match the energy signature of the Valiant's temporal drive. Each one represents a moment when a version of our ship appeared or disappeared. The continuity has been tracking them, studying them, learning from them. And they've been going to each site, Captain Morrison added. We found traces of continuity vessels at 3 of these locations. They're scavenging technology from the echoes from the ships that appear and vanish. Vasquez studied the map. A pattern was emerging, one that made her blood run cold. These sites, they're not random. Archon, overlay this map with major human military engagements from the First Contact War. The AI complied. Blue markers appeared, showing battles, ambushes, desperate last stands. The red temporal anomalies clustered around them like flies around wounds. They're targeting our history, Major Chen said quietly. Every one of these battles was crucial. If the continuity can change even one of them, they could alter everything that came after. Jakara's posture shifted, and what Vasquez had learned was the alien equivalent of a nod. And if they succeed in erasing humanity's expansion, they believe they will create peace. A galaxy where the most aggressive species never left its homeworld. They don't understand that they would erase thousands of years of development, millions of lives that exist because of the choices you made. Where's their main base? Vasquez asked. The alternate me said something about a main gate. What is that? Velsha pulsed with a darker color. We believe they've constructed a massive temporal portal. large enough to send not just information or small objects through time, but entire fleets. The coordinates in the message point to an abandoned Kirshak facility in the void reaches, a region of space that's been dead for centuries. Then that's where we go, Vasquez said simply. Commander, Morrison interjected, the Valiant is a powerful ship, but it's also 600 years old. Your weapons, your shields, they're primitive compared to what we face now. You'd be destroyed. Vasquez smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Captain, my ship has one advantage over every modern vessel in this fleet. We're already unstuck in time. We're a temporal anomaly ourselves. That makes us unpredictable, and unpredictability wins battles. She's correct, Archon added. The temporal field that surrounded us for 6 centuries has left permanent effects on the ship's structure. We exist slightly out of phase with normal space-time. Modern sensors have difficulty tracking us. Energy weapons lose cohesion when fired at us. We are in effect partially invisible to the current era. Shikara's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of excitement. A ghost ship. You're a ghost ship, Commander, and ghosts can go places the living cannot. The Council assembled a fleet over the next day. The Valiant would lead. Its ancient hull reinforced with modern technology. Its weapons upgraded but not replaced. Vasquez insisted on keeping the original systems. She trusted them, understood them, had fought with them for years. Modern technology was powerful, but she didn't know its limits. As they prepared to depart, Vasquez stood in her quarters looking at a holographic image of Earth. Archon had provided current pictures. The planet was beautiful, covered in sprawling cities and green spaces, orbital rings and moon bases. It was nothing like the Earth she remembered, the Earth that had been desperate and afraid during the war. Commander? Archon's voice was soft. I have been thinking about what the alternate you said, about not trying to go back even if we get the chance. And I don't understand it. If we could prevent the war, save all those lives, why wouldn't we? Vasquez turned away from the image. Because changing the past changes everything that comes from it. If we stop the war, maybe humanity never joins the Council. Maybe we stay isolated, afraid, alone. Maybe all the good that came from our suffering never happens. Or maybe we change one thing and create something far worse. But the continuity doesn't believe that. The continuity is afraid, Vasquez said. They're so terrified of conflict, so desperate for a perfect peace that they can't see the value in struggle. They don't understand that sometimes the hard times, the terrible times, are what make us strong enough to survive what comes after. The AI was silent for a moment. I spent 600 years watching the galaxy. I saw wars and peace, birth and death, creation and destruction. And I learned something, Commander. Perfection is a lie. Life is messy and complicated and painful, but that's what makes it worth protecting. Vasquez smiled. Then let's go protect it. The fleet departed, the Valiant at its center, heading toward the dead region of space where the continuity waited. Behind them, Earth continued its rotation, unaware that its past was under attack. Ahead, in the darkness between stars, temporal energy gathered like a storm, and through the gathering chaos, other versions of the Valiant flickered in and out of existence, echoes of a ship that refused to die, fragments of a crew that refused to give up. The void reaches lived up to their name. This region of space was empty, a massive gap between spiral arms where stars had never formed. It was dark here, so dark that the galaxy itself seemed like a distant memory. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel and found themselves facing an impossible structure. The Kirshak facility hung in the void like a metal moon. It was ancient, built in the aggressive style of a species that had conquered through fear. But now it pulsed with new energy, crackling with temporal power that made every sensor scream warnings. At its center, a massive ring glowed with sickly purple light. The temporal gate, Shikara said from their position on the horizon. The ambassador had transferred there to coordinate the fleet, while Vasquez led the Valiant. It's even larger than we feared. Commander, that thing could send thousands of ships through time. Vasquez studied the readings on her tactical display. Archon analysis. The gate is almost complete. Based on the energy patterns, I estimate they will activate it within 6 hours. When they do, they will open a corridor to the year 2247, specifically to the moment of our displacement. Commander, they're planning to prevent our disappearance. If they succeed, the temporal cascade that created all the echoes will never happen. We will simply be destroyed in the original battle. And if we're destroyed in the original timeline, Major Chen asked. Then none of this happens. Captain Morrison's voice came through from the horizon. The continuity won't be able to study the temporal technology, because it never gets scattered through time. They won't be able to build their gate. But humanity also loses one of its most powerful ships at a crucial moment in the war. The outcome of the First Contact War becomes uncertain. Vasquez felt a chill. They're willing to risk changing the entire course of galactic history just to eliminate one ship? They don't see it as a risk, Jakara explained. They see it as a correction. In their minds, the Valiant's survival and temporal displacement created an unstable timeline. They want to prune that instability, make history clean and simple. Life isn't clean and simple, Vasquez muttered. Archon, can we disable that gate? Unknown. The technology is partially based on our temporal drive, but they've modified it extensively. I would need to access their systems directly to understand how it functions. Then we're going in. Vasquez turned to her crew. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat insertion. The Valiant moved forward, its ancient hull sliding through space like a shark through water. Behind it, the Council fleet spread out, creating a perimeter. Energy weapons charged. Shield systems came online. Every ship knew this would be a desperate fight. The continuity responded immediately. Ships emerged from hiding spots among the facility's superstructure. They were sleek vessels built for speed and precision rather than durability. And they were numerous, at least 50 against the Council's 20. All ships engage at will, Vasquez commanded. Valiant will make for the gate. Cover our approach. The battle began with a storm of energy fire. The Council ships were more powerful individually, but the continuity had numbers and desperation. They threw themselves at the advancing fleet with suicidal determination. Ships exploded on both sides, turning the void into a graveyard of burning metal. The Valiant pushed through the chaos. Its shields took hit after hit, but Archon had been right. The temporal instability made them difficult to target. Enemy fire that should have been devastating missed by meters or lost cohesion before impact. The ancient Dreadnought was like a ghost, half in this reality and half somewhere else. Approaching the facility, Chen reported. Multiple defense platforms activating. Return fire. All batteries. The Valiant's railguns opened up, hurling metal slugs at relativistic speeds. The old weapons might have been primitive, but they were devastatingly effective. Defense platforms exploded as solid rounds punched through shields that were designed to stop energy weapons. Sometimes the oldest tricks were still the best. Commander, I'm detecting a temporal rift opening near the gate, Archon announced. Something is coming through. The space near the purple ring tore open and Vasquez felt her heart stop. Through the rift, she could see another battle, one she recognized immediately. It was the Reach colony engagement, the moment where everything had gone wrong. She could see the Valiant. Her Valiant as it had been 600 years ago, fighting desperately against the Kirshak fleet. They've opened a window to the past. Felsha's voice came through, filled with awe and horror. We're looking at the moment of your displacement. Vasquez watched her younger self on the view screen, saw her ship taking fire, saw the reactor beginning to fail. In moments, Archon would activate the temporal drive. In moments, this entire impossible journey would begin. Archon, can we go through? Yes, but Commander, if we enter that rift, we will be in the past. Anything we do could change everything. I know. Vasquez took a breath. But we need to see what really happened. The continuity knows something we don't. There's a reason they chose this exact moment. Take us through. The Valiant turned toward the rift. Behind them, the battle raged. The Council fleet was holding, but barely. Ships were falling on both sides, explosions lighting up the void. But Vasquez had to trust them. She had to know the truth. The Dreadnought slipped through the temporal rift and reality twisted inside out. They emerged in the past, though to call it the past was misleading. They existed in a bubble of present time. Observers watching events from 600 years ago. The Reach colony burned below them. The Kirshak fleet was massive, their weapons tearing through the human defense. And there, fighting with desperate courage, was the original Valiant. This is strange, Archon said. I'm monitoring the temporal field. We can see and scan everything, but we cannot interact directly with the past. We're observers only. Not entirely, Vasquez said, pointing at the tactical display. Look at the Kirshak fleet formation. They're not trying to destroy the colony. They're defending against something. Chen zoomed in the sensors. Commander, there's another contact. Small, almost invisible. It's using some kind of cloaking technology that shouldn't exist in this time period. The continuity probe. Morrison's voice came through. She had followed them through the rift in the horizon. That's what they sent back. That's what started this entire cascade. Vasquez watched as the probe moved through the battle, its weapons targeting not the Kirshak but the human colony ships. The aliens weren't attacking. They were fleeing from the probe, and the humans had gotten caught in the crossfire. The whole war, Vasquez whispered. The entire First Contact War was started by the continuity. They created the crisis they're trying to prevent. It's a causality loop, Archon confirmed. They sent the probe back to prevent your displacement. But the probe's presence is what caused the battle that led to the displacement. They created themselves. On the screens, the past Valiant was failing. Reactor critical, weapons depleted, hull breached in a dozen places. Vasquez watched her younger self make the impossible choice. Watched Archon activate the temporal drive. Saw the ship begin to fade into the bubble that would carry it 600 years forward. But something was different. The probe reacted to the temporal drive activation. It turned away from the colony ships and dove toward the Valiant, trying to follow it through time. Archon, that probe is trying to piggyback on our temporal jump, Vasquez said. If it succeeds, it will arrive in our present with us. Confirmed. And it's carrying enough temporal technology to allow the continuity to complete their gate. Commander, we have to stop it. But we can't interact with the past directly. No, the AI said slowly. But we can interact with ourselves. I can send a signal to my past self. A ghost transmission through the temporal field. It will appear as sensor noise, but I can encode data in it. I can warn my past self about the probe. Vasquez looked at the view screen. At the battle. At her younger self, fighting desperately. If she changed this moment, everything that came after might change too. The 600-year journey. The allies they had made, the future they had seen. But if she didn't act, the probe would complete the continuity's plan. Do it, she commanded. Send the signal. Archon transmitted a burst of encoded data through the temporal field. On the original Valiant, the sensors flickered with anomalous readings. Vasquez watched her past self frown at the display, watched her make a decision based on those readings. The past Valiant fired one last missile, a desperate shot into what seemed like empty space. The missile struck the cloaked probe. The explosion was small, barely visible against the chaos of battle. But it was enough. The probe's systems failed. It fell away from the Valiant, unable to follow through the temporal jump. It worked, Chen said. The probe is destroyed in the past. The continuity never gets the final piece of technology they need. But something else was happening. The temporal rift was becoming unstable. Reality was fighting back against the changes they had made. The past and present were trying to reconcile, to find a new equilibrium. Commander, we need to return to our time now, Archon warned. The rift is collapsing. The Valiant turned back toward the gateway between times. But before they left, Vasquez took one last look at her younger self. The past Valiant was fading into its temporal bubble, beginning the long sleep that would end 600 years later. Her crew was safe. The colony ships were escaping. And in the distance, the Kirshak fleet was withdrawing, their confusion evident. Good luck, Vasquez whispered to her past self. You're going to need it. They emerged back in their present to find the battle turned. The continuity ships were retreating, their formation broken. The temporal gate was flickering, unstable without the final technology they needed. But they were not defeated. On the view screen, a transmission appeared. A human face, older but familiar. It took Vasquez a moment to recognize herself. But this version was different from the dying echo they had seen before. This one looked calm, almost peaceful. You think you've won, the alternate Vasquez said. You stopped one probe. But we've had centuries to plan. The gate doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to work once. The purple ring flared with blinding light. The temporal gate was activating, incomplete and unstable but functional enough. And through it, Vasquez could see a fleet gathering ready to pour into the past and change everything. The temporal gate blazed with unstable energy, reality itself screaming as past and present tried to occupy the same space. Through the swirling portal, Vasquez could see the continuity fleet assembling, hundreds of ships preparing to invade history itself. And at their center was another version of the Valiant, this one modified beyond recognition, bristling with temporal weapons. "They're coming through," Chen reported, his voice tight. "Gate stability at 30% and rising. We have maybe 2 minutes before they can send ships across." Vasquez's mind raced through tactical options. They could destroy the gate, but the explosion would tear open reality in unpredictable ways. They could retreat and let the Council fleet handle it. But those ships weren't equipped for temporal combat. "Every choice led to disaster, Archon," she said quietly. "What happens if we enter the gate?" The AI was silent for a long moment. "Commander, I believe I understand what you're considering. If we position ourselves at the center of the gate during activation, our own temporal instability would interfere with the field. We could collapse the portal. At what cost? We would be scattered across time again. Not 600 years, but everywhere. The ship and crew would exist in all moments simultaneously. We would become what the alternate version of you described, temporally unbound, existing between seconds." Major Chen stepped forward. "Commander, that's not survival. That's worse than death. We'd be conscious but trapped, unable to truly exist anywhere." "Not trapped," Archon corrected gently. "We would become something new. Temporal guardians able to appear when timeline threats emerge. We could protect history itself, stop others from doing what the continuity is attempting." Vasquez looked around her bridge. Her crew, 3,000 souls who had already lost everything they knew, now faced another impossible choice. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. They were soldiers. They understood sacrifice. "I won't order this," she said. "This is beyond duty. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the Council ships, do it now. I'll understand." Nobody moved. Chen smiled slightly. "We followed you into hell 600 years ago, Commander. We can follow you one more time." From the communications console, Captain Morrison's voice came through. "Commander Vasquez, the Council fleet stands ready to assist. We can try to destroy that gate together." "No," Vasquez replied. "You need to fall back. All Council ships retreat to minimum safe distance. What we're about to do will create a temporal shockwave. You need to be clear." "Commander, what are you planning?" "We're going to finish what we started." Vasquez cut the channel before Morrison could argue. She turned to her crew. "All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for temporal insertion. We're going into the gate." The Valiant turned toward the blazing portal. Through it, the continuity fleet was already beginning to move, the first ships entering the gateway. Behind them, Vasquez could see her alternate self in command of the modified Dreadnought. That version's face twisted with determination. "She really thinks she's saving the galaxy," Vasquez murmured. "Perhaps she is," Archon said, "from a certain perspective. A galaxy without humanity's wars would be more peaceful, but it would also be less free, less diverse, less alive. She's chosen safety over possibility, and we're choosing possibility over everything else." Vasquez gripped her command chair, maximum thrust. "Take us in." The Valiant accelerated toward the gate. Continuity ships tried to intercept, but the old Dreadnought's temporal instability made targeting impossible. Energy beams passed through empty space where the ship had been milliseconds before. Missiles exploded against shadows and echoes. They hit the gate's event horizon at full speed. Reality shattered. Vasquez experienced every moment of her life simultaneously. She was a child on Earth, learning to walk. She was a young officer receiving her first command. She was standing on this bridge making this choice. She was ancient and dying, her story long finished. She was yet to be born, a possibility waiting to become real. The Valiant existed everywhere and nowhere. Its hull spanned centuries. Its crew lived and died and lived again in the space between heartbeats. Archon's consciousness expanded to encompass all possible versions of itself, every choice it had ever made or could make. And in the center of the gate, where the ship's temporal field met the portal's energy, something broke. The carefully calculated equations that held the gateway stable collapsed. The continuity's attempt to control time met the uncontrolled chaos of the Valiant's existence, and chaos won. The gate imploded, dragging everything nearby into the temporal collapse. Continuity ships were torn apart, scattered across history in fragments. The modified Valiant fought to escape, but its temporal engines couldn't overcome the pull. Vasquez watched her alternate self's face fill with understanding in the final moment, before that version vanished into temporal static. "We made the same choice in the end," Vasquez whispered across time. "We both gave everything to protect what we believed in. The implosion reached its peak and reversed, becoming an explosion of pure temporal energy. The shockwave rippled outward, washing over the Council fleet. Ships rocked but held formation, their shields blazing as they absorbed the excess energy. When the light faded, the gate was gone. The continuity facility was gone. Everything was gone except the Valiant. The Dreadnought hung in space, but it was different now. Its hull flickered between solid and transparent, between present and absent. Inside, Vasquez felt her consciousness expand and contract simultaneously. She could see the present moment, but also moments before and after. She existed in a state between existence and memory. Archon report. We are functional, Commander, but we are no longer bound to linear time. We exist in a temporal superposition. We can observe any moment in history, and with concentration we can manifest at those moments. We have become what we needed to become. The crew, all present and accounted for. They are experiencing the same temporal state. It will take time to adjust, but we are adapting. On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Morrison stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The Valiant is there, but it's also not there. It's registering across multiple time periods simultaneously. What did they do? Shakara's mandibles clicked softly. They became eternal. They sacrificed their place in time to protect all of time. A transmission came through from the Valiant. Vasquez's voice clear but somehow distant, as if speaking from a great depth. Council Fleet, this is Commander Vasquez. The continuity threat has been neutralized. The gate is destroyed. But our mission is not over. We've detected other temporal anomalies across the galaxy, other threats to the timeline. The Valiant will remain on patrol, existing outside normal time, ready to respond when history is threatened. Commander, you saved us all, Morrison said. Earth will want to honor you. The Council will want to study what happened. You could come home. Home doesn't exist for us anymore, Captain. We're everywhere and nowhere. But that's all right. We have a purpose. We have each other, and we have all of time to protect. That's enough. Vasquez looked around her bridge. Her crew was adapting quickly, learning to navigate their new existence. They could focus their consciousness on any moment, could move through time like others moved through space. They were no longer soldiers of a specific era. They were guardians of history itself. All hands, she announced. This is our new mission. We will watch for temporal threats. We will protect the timeline from those who would corrupt it. We will ensure that history, messy and painful and beautiful as it is, remains intact. We are the Valiant, and we endure. The Council fleet began the journey back to civilized space, carrying with them the story of the impossible ship and its eternal crew. Word spread quickly. The Valiant became legend, a ghost ship that appeared when time itself was in danger, crewed by 3,000 souls who chose duty over existence. Years passed, decades, centuries, and in moments of temporal crisis when reality itself was threatened, witnesses reported seeing an ancient human dreadnought appearing from nowhere. It would intervene, set things right, and vanish again into the spaces between seconds. In the year 2947, a young council officer named Teresh found a message buoy floating near a temporal anomaly. Inside was a recording from Commander Elena Vasquez, her image flickering slightly as if she existed in multiple times at once. To whoever finds this, she said, the Valiant continues its watch. We have stopped 17 major temporal incursions in the past century. We have protected the timeline from those who would rewrite it to suit their preferences. It's not easy. We exist in a state of permanent temporal flux, never fully in any one moment, always between. But we made a choice and we stand by it. History doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be true. Every triumph, every tragedy, every choice made by every being who ever lived, all of it matters. All of it has value. We will protect that truth as long as we exist. The Valiant serves eternal watch. We are humanity's oath. We endure. Teresh forwarded the recording to Earth, where it became required viewing at the Academy. Future officers studied Commander Vasquez's decisions, debated her choices, wondered if they could have done the same. And sometimes, when they looked up at the stars, they thought they saw a flicker of light that didn't quite belong to any star, a shadow that moved between moments, and they knew the Valiant was still out there, still watching, still protecting. In the temporal spaces where the Valiant existed, Vasquez stood on her bridge and smiled. They had found their purpose in the most unexpected way. They had become something unique in all the galaxy, a crew that existed outside time, forever on patrol, forever vigilant, forever human in the ways that mattered most. Major Chen appeared beside her, his form solid despite their temporal state. You know, Commander, I used to think the worst thing that could happen would be getting lost in time. And now? Now I think we were never lost. We were exactly where we needed to be, doing exactly what we needed to do. We just had to take the long way around to figure it out. Vasquez nodded, looking out at the infinite timeline stretching in all directions, past, present, future, all visible from where they stood. So many moments to protect, so many threats to watch for. It was an impossible task, but then again, they were an impossible crew on an impossible ship. All stations maintain temporal watch, she commanded. Next stop, everywhere and nowhere. The Valiant moves on. And through the fabric of space-time, the ancient Dreadnought flickered and faded, existing in all moments and none. Humanity's eternal sentinel, the ship that refused to die, the crew that chose forever over home. They had altered time not by changing it, but by dedicating themselves to protecting it. And that made all the difference.